Michigan's roads, are we building them the best way possible? Why aren't they holding up? And is $2 billion enough?
It's no secret that for the past 40 years, we have not invested enough in our roads.
I go one-on-one with MDOT Director Paul Ajegba. Plus the real agenda up at next week's Mackinac Policy Conference and why civility is front and center. I'm Christy McDonald. Join me along with Stephen Henderson at Motor City Java House. One Detroit is coming up.
MASCO Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. MASCO and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV. The Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
Business Leaders for Michigan has 5 priorities to make Michigan a top 10 state. Achieve a balanced budget, cut long-term debt, fix our roads, improve all levels of education, further economic growth, plan for a stronger Michigan. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.
and viewers like you. Thank you.
Capture for me what it's like for neighborhoods to have a certain gathering space and a place where you recognize people and you know you can go and you can get a great cup of coffee and you can have good conversation with people.
Well, it's important for folks to have a place where it feels as if they're at home. And we say the artist village is where the world meets. And we've been blessed with visitors from across the city, the country, and around the world. It really shows that when a group of folks decide to put their petty differences aside and focus on something that's going to be a benefit to the kids and to the community, you can create a space and a place where people feel comfortable to come and relax, come to volunteer. You know, donuts and coffee go with volunteerism, you need both. Of course. But it's safe to say that the village has become that place where people can come and give and get and participate on many levels.
Welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald, and thanks so much to Motor City Java House for having us. Focusing on the biggest issues facing Michigan this week, starting with roads. I went to Lansing to meet up with MDOT Director Paul Ajegba. He talks about how we're building roads now and the frustration he's hearing at town halls around the state. Plus, we'll have a closer look at the agenda up on Mackinac for the annual policy conference. And Stephen and Nolan help lead conversations on civility, how being uncivil can actually affect a company's bottom line. That's all on this episode of One Detroit. But we're starting with the director of MDOT. He knows the roads are in bad shape. Paul Ajegba has been an engineer with MDOT for almost 30 years. And Paul explains how our roads are built today, why it seems like they're working on them right after they're finished, and how they're choosing the next projects. How would you describe the state of Michigan's roads?
Well, I think it's no secret that for the past 40 years, we have not invested enough in our roads. Michigan is ranked 46 out of 50 states as far as investing per capita in our roadways. I think the biggest frustration for me is because for somebody who's worked in MDOT for 29 years, we've been doing a lot of bandage work for as long as I can remember. And we've been on record for as long as I can remember saying, we need funding. This is going to get worse. This is going to get worse. The longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to get.
Explain to people how building roads have changed over the last 29 years. What's different than what we were doing all those years ago to what we're doing now and how we're building our roads in Michigan?
Well, obviously the technology has improved, number one. We are putting a lot of technology devices out there. But two, the basic building of roads from the ground up with, tearing it out, put a new base and a new aggregate base and all that, the sequence of building the road has really not changed. What's changed, why it's becoming more and more so obvious now, is that our roads are old. I-75 in Oakland County, that freeway was built in the 60s. A good, well-designed and well-constructed road should last you about 30 years. With good maintenance, you can get another 10 years out of it. That's almost 60-year-old roadway.
So you haven't been digging down to the bottom again and starting over with the full rebuild of a road. It's been, what, a cheaper kind of just resurface?
Exactly. For instance, I'll give you an example. You have $200 million. You have a choice. Do you build about 11 miles of I-96 freeway out here between Howell and Weberville, or do you spread that $200 million so you can touch so many other roadways that are needed? So that's what we've been doing, spreading the money as far as we can, doing just mill and resurface, take out about 2 inch and put 2 inch back. So when people see that, they say, well, they think you've rebuilt the road, right? Because it looks nice for that very short period of time. But in 5-7 years, they start seeing cracks, they start seeing maintenance crew out there patching the road. They start wondering, you just built this road.
Is that the biggest complaint that you usually get from people
Absolutely.
saying, look, you already did 696, why are there 2 lanes closed back again and you guys are doing something like resurfacing?
Exactly, and that's the key. What we've been trying to do is educate the public about this, that we really did not dig everything out and reconstruct it. There's the difference between reconstructing and resurfacing.
So then people will wonder, all right, this gas tax that the governor is talking about, $2.5 billion. So is that rebuild? Is that the money that we need to rebuild these roads, or is that more patch and fix work?
So the idea is that when we get this money, we are going to start doing a mix of fixes. There are some roadways that needs reconstruct now. We're going to try to bring those, advance those kind of projects and start reconstructing them. But there are some that still have some shelf life that we could do some resurfacing to buy us 5 or more so years so that, we can catch up. Because again, the workload.
So is that enough? Is that dollar amount enough? Because we haven't even talked about bridges yet. And does that include bridges? Because we look and say there's some reports out saying that 10% of Michigan's bridges are in poor condition.
That is correct.
And they're in critical need of repair.
That is correct.
Does that include?
Well, the governor, part of the governor's plan is to also, we've identified about 1,100 to 1,200 bridges all over the state right now. That what we are going to do is bundle these bridges together and then put those out as separate bid. It's going to be more or less bonding to fix these bridges.
And what about money for maintenance? Even if you have the money to build the good road, you then have to maintain it. You can't just let it alone for the next 5-7 years.
I'm glad you brought that up. When we do this town hall meetings, I always use Florida, comparison between Michigan and Florida. Because when I use Michigan and Ohio, people will say, well, Ohio has more lane miles than we do. I say, okay, fine, you got me there. So Florida, if you look at Florida's lane miles compared to Michigan lane miles, it's almost identical. They have 122,000 lane miles. We have 122,000 lane miles, maybe a few more thousand over us. Bridges, they have 12,000, we have 11,000. So very close. But the difference is that Florida spends $1 billion a year in maintenance of their road. We spend about $330 million.
On maintenance.
Maintenance. And I would say, objectively, we should be spending more than Florida because we have to plow snow, and we have to, salt and all that other stuff that we do here that they don't do. Obviously, they have hurricane, but even in the funding aspect, they spend about $6.1 billion a year. We only spend about 1.5 billion. It's a huge difference. And that's why the condition of our roadway is what it is out there.
I'm sure you're hearing a lot in the town halls about trust and trusting that the government is spending people's tax monies to fix the road in the best way possible. Would you say that MDOT has been the most efficient in terms of fixing the roads with what resource that they've had?
I mean, absolutely. I can give you so many examples of that. We at MDOT are very mindful of exactly that. We've done, as I mentioned, a whole lot with very little resources. Our needs out there are huge. And the other communities, the counties and the cities are all in the same boat. So we've been forced to try and spread the dollar as much as we can to make, to keep things going. So yes, part of that building trust is also establishing transparency, right? A lot of the general public does not understand how, number one, how we pick projects, how we fund them, and the whole sequence of getting from planning to building the road. So one of the things we are looking at doing is establish a statewide map that will show, that will pinpoint every location of projects that we have out there. It'll start from conception to conclusion. Anywhere along that process, you can go in there, click on that little dot, and the roadway will pop up. You can see where we are in the planning process, in the design process, in the construction process. How much have we spent to date? Are we below or above budget? And on and on and on. But I believe part of that whole 2015 cycle, we did not do a good job of educating the public that we're only committing $600 million right now, and the other $600 million is going to come later. And also, I think people believe that was the end-all, be-all, cure-all solution to the problem, not understanding that that was just a stopgap. So I do hear that frustration, and I think, quite frankly, for us now in 2019, having this conversation, like, we just had this conversation. We haven't seen any difference. So that's part of the frustration that I see. It's not so much that the governor's asking for 45 cents. It's okay. Even if we give you this money, we're going to see a difference. And I can understand that frustration as well.
The gas tax and the road debate will be one of the major topics of conversation up at the Mackinac Policy Conference, and that is happening next week on Mackinac Island. This will be the 9th year that Detroit Public Television will broadcast the entire conference, and we'll have our One Detroit show from the Grand Hotel each night. We spoke with conference chair, Consumers Energy CEO Patty Poppe, and Detroit Regional Chamber CEO Sandy Barua about the agenda.
So the pillars of the conference under this overarching banner of One Michigan are Prepare Michigan, Grow Michigan, and Love Michigan. Prepare Michigan is all about our education system, and we've got an exciting agenda lined up to talk about education in Michigan. Grow Michigan is about entrepreneurship, and Love Michigan is all about sustainability and stewardship in creating businesses and a business climate in Michigan that can stand the test of time.
I think two things that I'm particularly excited about. One is our continuation of our conversation around political civility. We're going to be having several sessions on the importance of political discourse. We're going to talk about why our political discourse has deteriorated as it has. We're going to be talking with kind of Washington old hands who've watched the progression of our incivility grow over the last several decades. And the other issue is education. We're really tackling the education challenge in Michigan in a very different way this year. Certainly we've talked about education in the past, but this year we're really using it as a launching pad for an effort called Launch Michigan. It'll be the Launch Michigan coming out party, if you will, which is really a unique statewide, multi-pronged effort to really examine and solve Michigan's education crisis. And that'll be a big focus on Thursday of the conference.
And I can't cover the Mackinac Policy Conference without Stephen Henderson of American Black Journal and Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, who couldn't be with us today, but will join us on the island next week.
Yes, you will.
9th year that Detroit Public Television has been carrying this in the entire conference.
It seems not like 9, but if you say so.
That's what I say. So obviously there's a bunch of things on the real agenda, and there's like a lot of things that are going to be going on behind the scenes in terms of talking about auto insurance, roads, especially the budget that the governor is going to be talking with the legislature about.
So Rick Snyder set kind of a standard for this first Mackinac as governor, or I should say a higher standard. I mean, for every governor, it's sort of an important marker. But he made it such a showcase for the things that he wanted to get
his agenda.
done, and was very effective at getting everybody who's there to go along with that and to get some things done. So there's pressure on Governor Whitmer in that sense that she's got to at least try to match that or maybe better it. But then there's also this incredible pressure of the issues that she's got on the table. This roads plan that she has out that's not winning a lot of support either in the legislature or among the public. I mean, this poll that says, 3/4 of people think it's a terrible idea to add that money to the gas tax. That's not helping her. You couple that with auto insurance and put it all in the context of the budget, which we're now used to seeing.
We're used to seeing it done at the end of June.
Yeah, it's not going to happen this year.
It's not going to happen.
So she's got a lot to manage and to kind of prove while she's up there. I don't remember this kind of anxiety going into Snyder's first Mackinac after he was elected. It seemed more certain that he could manage that crowd, and that was his crowd, right?
Well, that was his crowd. It was a business crowd, and so in his was more of like a victory lap that first
really
year that he was up there, and he also had a legislature that was ready to work with him.
Wanted to do what he wanted to
on
do.
everything, and I think Governor Whitmer's in a bit of a much tougher spot, and you wonder, or what's the threshold for paying for Republicans to want to give her some of the things that she wants?
Well, I mean, I think they will give her as much as they can claim for themselves, right? I mean, they're not going to give her things that she's going to be able to say she did on her own or that they caved on. I mean, they're going to extract what they need for their voters out of her in order to give her anything at all. And the budget is the way that they do that, by holding it hostage. And that's how we ought to be describing it, by the way. I mean, the budget is not a political issue. It's a governing issue, and it should be done before the end of June. Republicans are threatening to hold it hostage because they want something more out of the roads package.
One of the conversations there that I'm going to be looking forward to, sometimes when you walk through the Grand Hotel and you see people standing in corners and talking to each other, would be the Governor Whitmer, Dan Gilbert conversation about auto insurance right now.
I'm not sure that's a help. I mean, what he's doing. I think he thinks he's helping, but given the sort of state of play of that issue in the legislature, that doesn't put the right pressure on them to do more of what she's asking. I mean, I think she's right that the bills that are moving just are not acceptable. But Gilbert's plan, I don't know if that sort of intervenes in a way that makes it easier for her to get what she needs.
Or makes it a little bit messier.
Yeah, it does.
What's the interview you're looking forward to? Because I know with WDET, you're going to have a full kind of schedule.
Who are we not talking to?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody coming by as well.
So I'm actually looking forward to an interview that I'm not doing. Stacey Abrams is going to be there, and I think that's. I asked, by the way, if I could be the person to handle that session. They chose someone else.
Denied.
I'm not sore about that. I am really looking forward to that conversation, though. I think she is one of the most fascinating people on the political landscape nationally. I think that's somebody whose name we will be saying for a long time in American politics, and I think she's somebody who has changed the conversation in a state that no one thought it could be changed in a way that was really dramatic. So I think it's really great that they got her.
And national politics is going to be a lot on the agenda up there, and taking a look at where Michigan stands in all of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, part of the agenda up at Mackinac will be about the Detroit Civility Project that Nolan and Stephen launched back in February. And as part of our coverage with the Chamber in advance of the Mackinac Policy Conference, here's a look at some of the conversations the Civility Project is inspiring. The Detroit Regional Chamber's 2019 Detroit Policy Conference, where Stephen Henderson and Nolan Finley kick off the Detroit Civility Project.
And what we're really trying to get at is the polarization of America, the division in America that we all talk about, that we all see around us.
It got to the point where I had to unfollow her on Facebook. I wish I could have handled that differently. Why was I so willing to discard my friend? Because her beliefs were different.
Margaret Allen is talking with her conversation partner, Amy Hennis, as part of the Civility Project. Allen helps returning citizens, but on social media, she'd learned her best friend living in Grand Rapids had a change of political heart.
We've talked about it more recently, and she has said, If you loved and respected me, you should have just at least heard me out. And I didn't. I wasn't willing to, because the premise was offensive. You like Republicans? Oh, no. I think over the years I've learned that people understand what they know, but we're so emotional about it that we don't take the time to get to know what they know or to try and understand where they're coming from, because a different opinion doesn't make a person a bad person. But I still had that instinctive response to Nolan Finley, so I'm like, maybe I can benefit from this.
So many lost friendships and the emotional costs. And what about the bottom line? Incivility has become a cost of doing business.
We talk about incivility. If people are being civil, it doesn't figure into my workload.
Attorney Terry Bonnet of Nemeth Law in Detroit helps train companies with civility issues.
We see more debate in the workplace as we see more and more people expressing their political beliefs in the workplace. We see more and more people pushing back and saying, nope, that's not who I am, and I don't want to hear that.
In a time when so many can get so riled up, what about our next generation?
Royal Oak, Michigan, just outside Detroit, is a community trying to heal itself. This video of 7th graders chanting "Build a Wall" catapulted Royal Oaks Middle School into the national spotlight the day after Donald Trump won the election.
I'm worried that the rancor, the vile conversation at a national level is discouraging good people getting into public service.
I think it's a concern. You have to have reasonable, sound people getting involved in making a difference, and a lot of times they're the ones that get turned off by the hostility and the arguments and fighting and lack of respect. And you and I have went at it several times in debate, right?
David Woodward, Democrat, and Mike Gingell, Republican, serve on the Oakland County Board of Commissioners.
Commissioner Woodward. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I like
getting together in Detroit at Midtown's Great Lakes Coffee for the Civility Project. Gingell ruled the roost as chairman, but last fall's election put the Democrats on top, with Woodward now in charge.
And there's been times where I've said to you, Dave, it's never going to happen. And now you're saying to me, when you have the votes, Mike, that's never going to happen. And we don't have to fight to the death on every issue.
Mike can pretty well articulate my position on an issue and why I believe that. And vice versa, I can articulate his position.
I didn't need Dave. I didn't need Dave's vote. I didn't need Dave's ideas. I didn't need Dave's support. But yet I'd meet with Dave and talk to him about what's important and what ideas does he have and how could we take that idea and make it something that would work for everyone.
It does surprise some people, and frankly, I mean, if you watch some of our board meetings where we'll get into a heated debate, some people will be like, wow, you actually like each other, and you're actually friends?
And right now, Dave has the majority by one vote. He doesn't need my vote. He doesn't need my input, but yet he seeks it because there's a level of respect and an understanding that if we collaborate, we're probably going to get a better result.
So what do you think about the progress of the Civility Project?
I continue to be really enthused about the way people have embraced this and really seem to have leaned into the idea of doing it and participating in good faith. We'll see on the island what we come up with when we get report outs from people. And
what some of the feedback will be.
Yeah, like how they found it and whether they found it useful in any way to really think differently about people in their own communities who think differently than they did.
You know, I think it's a deliberate process. You have to be very deliberate in every interaction that you start to make, each day. And that's what I think sometimes we forget. We quickly forget.
Right, right. You hear something that you don't agree with or see something and you react instead of thinking, well, there's a reason that person thinks that way, and it's not because they're a bad person or an evil person. They just think differently than I do.
All right, well, we'll be watching that when we get up there on the island. All right, so you're not going to Mackinac, but you want to know everything that's happening on the island? Well, starting Wednesday, May 29th, you can stream the coverage online at dptv.org. See all the speakers and events Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday during the day. Plus, head back to Detroit Public TV at 7:30 p.m. each night. You'll see One Detroit from Mackinac Island on Wednesday, May 29th. Thursday the 30th, of course, on our regular night, and a special One Detroit from Mackinac Friday at 7:30 p.m. That'll do it for us here on One Detroit. Next time you see us, we'll be up north. So see you next week starting Wednesday from Mackinac Island.
MASCO Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. MASCO and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
Business Leaders for Michigan has 5 priorities to make Michigan a top 10 state. Achieve a balanced budget, cut long-term debt, fix our roads, improve all levels of education, further economic growth, plan for a stronger Michigan. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.
and viewers like you. Thank you.